Hello, thanks for clicking. I'm Mark Morse. Today I'm going to be doing the Japan Vinyl Tag 2024 for my friend Brian at Tokyo Record Style. He's celebrating being in Tokyo for 20 years now, and he came up with this tag, and I'm going to link to his original video below so you can participate too. Don't be intimidated by it like I was. I was thinking I don't have anything Japan related in my collection, or it's surely not enough to show 20 records. But Brian has been very kind and made the contest kind of open-ended with his questions, and you'll see what I mean as I go through these records. So let's get started. His first thing he wants us to do is, and that's show a record with a Japanese obi strip. So the obi strip is this little sash here. This is the Meet the Beatles. As you know, I'm a big Beatles fan. I'm getting this in the mono version here. This is my Japanese flag series with the obi strip on here. Brian says he'll give us extra points if we can decipher what is written on here, and I've deciphered it very well. This says the Beatles, #1 group, very good listening. And then over here, it looks like it says, I want to hold your hand, I saw her standing there, this boy, etc., etc. So I hope I get lots of extra credit for that, Brian. The second thing he wants us to do is a Japanese band or artist. Show a Japanese band or artist, or a Japan-inspired band or artist. So my first thought was, you know what, Yoko Ono. That's who I was going to do, because I don't have any solo Yoko, but I do have some of her records with John Lennon. But I thought, you know what, I have somebody who's just pure Japanese, and I'm talking about Akira Ifukube. And he does, or has done, a lot of soundtracks for these kaiju movies. This one is King Kong Escapes. I have lots of his stuff, but very dynamic, bombastic music. This is just a great record. And so this is my Japanese artist, Akira Ifukube. The third one is Sunrise Soundtrack. Share a record for watching at sunrise. So you know that Japan's the home of the rising sun. So I picked a rather odd album. It's Pink Floyd's Atom Heart Mother. And this is an album that I think every member of Pink Floyd has said they hated this album, that this is their album they hate the most. But I have great affection for this record. And the reason I picked it for Sunrise, first of all, it has just kind of has a sunrise theme to it. On side 2, it starts off with If, kind of a nice, quiet start. Then Summer 68, Fat Old Sun, about the sun rising, and then Alan's Psychedelic Breakfast. It's very sunrise related, and the reason I associate this with sunrise so much is back in the day when I was a much younger and dumber person, my drug of choice was psychedelics, and I used to listen to this album consistently as kind of a calm down album, which was always happened to be about sunrise. So this is my sunrise record. Don't do drugs. City Sounds. Show a record with a city vibe. And when I think of city vibes, I always think of Lou Reed. And so I picked out for this category Lou Reed, Street Hassle. I just think of him as a New York guy. I was going to go with the album New York, but I figured that was a little too obvious, and I wanted to do something just a little different. But Lou Reed always makes me think of New York, kind of like Woody Allen. Number 5, Zen Listening. Show a record that quiets your mind. And I went with Cat Power. I always call this album free. I always see it referred to as free, but it looks like it says you are Cat Power Free. I've always thought that was the full name, but Cat Power Free. This album is just, I just love it. It does quiet my mind. It has one of my all-time favorite songs on it. Look at this, that's Cat Power. But one of my favorite songs on here is a song called Werewolf, and it was originally done by Michael Hurley. If you haven't heard Werewolf by Cat Power, look it up. It's on YouTube. Go 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 Godzilla is number 6. Share a record that destroyed your music expectations and perceptions. Now, I went with David Bowie, Ziggy Stardust, or The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders of Mars. But this also has an Obi strip on it. It fits very well with the album, so you can hardly see it. But this album, the first song I'd ever heard by David Bowie that I really loved was Space Oddity. I was a boy. I was probably, I don't know, 10 years old. Just loved the song. I think Space Oddity was the first David Bowie album I got, and I loved it. But when I heard The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, and especially when I listened to it in headphones, I was just blown away. And I knew that David Bowie was going to be one of my favorite artists of all time. And he was, and he just went on and he just kept getting better and better. 7, Ahead of Its Time. Share a record that was ahead of its time. And I went with, I think maybe a little, kind of an odd choice, but I went with Iggy and the Stooges, Raw Power. Now, I think all the Stooges records were ahead of their time. They're just so gritty, I guess. They're just so punk before punk was punk. And I just think when this came around, I was just, oh my goodness, this thing is just powerful. It's raw powerful. But this is the version I have. It has the Iggy mix and the Bowie mix in it. When the punks came out, I think they owe a lot to Iggy and the Stooges. Take a Walk, Man. It's a Sony Walkman tribute. Show an album suitable for dubbing to cassette for the classic Sony Walkman. Now, this record came to mind right away because I actually had a Sony Walkman, and when this record came out, I had it on cassette tape. The Smiths Meat is Murder. And if you're out walking about with this playing in your ears, it's perfect. It's perfect. This is my OG copy. I've shown this before. I think it has some blood on there and stuff, kind of punk itself. Bullet Train. Show a record perfect for a train ride. Now, when I saw Brian talking about this on his channel, when I first saw Train Ride, I started thinking of like Johnny Cash songs and stuff. But when he was talking about it, he talked about it more as like a bullet train. What's something that keeps you going? High energy, that kind of thing. And I picked, and I know this is a weird pick for this too, but U2 Achtung Baby. This thing is, I'm not a super U2 fan, but there's a couple albums I really like, but this is my all-time favorite. And even the slow songs have this drive to it. Very industrial sound for U2, and I really like this album. So that's what I picked for Bullet Train. And then, Lost in Translation. Share a record that takes you to a different world. And so there's a lot of records that really fit that bill. But I went with another Pink Floyd album, Meddle, M-E-D-D-L-E. And when I listen to this, it really does take me into a different world. Kind of a trippy little album, but a soothing way to get to another world with not having to pay a lot of transportation fares. Live at the Budokan. Show any record recorded live. So he was not requiring a record that was recorded live at the Budokan, but I did go with Bob Dylan at Budokan as my choice for this. This is I really like this record. Some of it has kind of a reggae. He's kind of reworked some of these songs. Some of them even has kind of a reggae sound to it. But I've always really enjoyed this album, and I think it was the first Budokan record from anybody I ever owned. Vinyl bar. Show a record to play at a vinyl bar. This one was a little tough to me because I've never been to a vinyl bar, but if you watch Brian's video, he'll give you an idea what they're like, and you gotta be kind of quiet at these vinyl bars because they're listening to the vinyl. But I decided to go with the Velvet Underground's third release, The Velvet Underground. But this is, I think it's an interesting album. This is the first Velvet Underground after John Cale had left and Doug Yule had come in. And why I chose it is it's not abrasive like some of the other Velvet Underground. It's not as avant-garde. So it's quieter. You can talk, but you still have to be quiet. It has some great songs on here. Candy Says, What Goes On, Some Kind of Love, Pale Blue Eyes, beautiful. Jesus, that Jesus song, I really love that song. Beginning to See the Light, The Murder Mystery is on here, and After Hours, which is actually sung by the drummer, Maureen Tucker, and it's a beautiful song. Island Nation, number 13. Island Nation, share a record with an island vibe. Well, I don't really have records that really have an island vibe to them, and I'm not even real sure what that would be. But I do have this Men at Work Cargo album that definitely has an island theme to it. Monsoon Season, share a record for a rainy day. Share a record for a rainy day. So for this one, I went for Electric Light Orchestra, Out of the Blue. And the reason I chose this is because side 3 is called Concerto for a Rainy Day. And it starts off with Standing in the Rain, goes to Big Wheels, Summer and Lightning, and Mr. Blue Sky. When this came out, I was in love with this record. So number 15, he calls it Wabi Sabi. And Wabi Sabi is show a record that is imperfectly perfect. And I had a lot of ideas about this. One of the ones I was going to choose was a Neil Young record, but Brian used a Neil Young record, Tonight's the Night, for his choice, and that was so perfect. I didn't want to do another Neil Young record because that one was the perfect choice if you're going to pick an imperfect, perfect album from Neil Young. But I went with the Beatles' Magical Mystery Tour, and this is that Hortzoo version where it has a true stereo on both sides. It's a fantastic album, but why I think it is imperfectly perfect is because it came out in the UK as a double EP, and when it came to the United States, they made it a long player. The movie was not a success at all. It was touted as the Beatles' first failure or something. The movie was not a big hit. But the album, I think, is strangely perfect. It's a very odd album. Magical Mystery Tour, The Fool on the Hill, Flying, that beautiful Beatles instrumental. George Harrison's Blue Jay Way, Your Mother Should Know, I Am the Walrus is on here. John Lennon just at his greatest. Hello, Goodbye, Strawberry Fields Forever. Did I say John Lennon at his greatest? His very greatest. Penny Lane, Baby You're a Rich Man, and All You Need Is Love. Did I say John Lennon at his greatest? I just think this album is perfect in a very odd way. Number 16, Origami Me. Show a record with intricate or interesting packaging. I don't know how intricate this is, but I have always thought Alice Cooper's Schools Out is an interesting packaging. It looks like a desk. Some of us remember these wooden desks where you'd carve stuff into them. The other thing is, though, I'm not going to do it, but you can open this up and it serves as a desk. And then you open it up and first of all, there's like some panties in here, which I think is interesting. These look really good on me, by the way. And then, you know, then there's besides the records, there's all these little contents in the desk with the list of songs and stuff. I've always just thought this was an interesting package. And so that is what I'm using for my Origami Me. Then, Fusion Frenzy. Share an album that fuses genres. So this really, I think I should get extra points for, because this is Sean Ono Lennon's Asterisms. Now this is an album, it fuses rock and jazz and psychedelia. It's really well done. And the reason I think I should get extra points is because Sean Ono Lennon is the descendant. His mother is Japanese, Yoko Ono. So he has Japanese heritage, and this is a great fusion record. Then, Tokyo Nights, Show a Nightlife record. And this is what I chose. Tom Waits' Nighthawks at the Diner. This is just a beautiful record. When I first got this, I was in high school, and I would play this. I had like these little flashing lights. I think they were called disco lights, but they weren't. They were just colored lights. And I would sit in the dark in my room and listen to this album and pretend I was at some jazz club in New York or something. And this is, I just think, is the perfect nightlife record. Nights. Then End of the Day, and then he has some Japanese word that must mean end of the day. It looks like Otsuka Samarama. Show a record to play at the end of a busy day. And this is what I chose for that. We are on record 19. We're almost done, folks. This is Neil Young, his debut album called Neil Young. And I really love this album. It's a little different for Neil Young, and it has a very mellow feel to it, but it's a great end of the day record. It's a great. And then finally, we're at number 20. The Last Samurai is what he's calling it. Share a record to be remembered by, to play at your memorial. So I think about this kind of stuff all the time. Songs I'd like to be played at my funeral, that kind of thing. I usually don't think in terms of albums, though. I usually think I have a playlist in my head that I would like played. But if I were to pick an album, I decided to go with the Pogues, If I Should Fall from Grace with God. There is so much on here that I think would be fun. There's that raucous kind of drinking Pogues that I like so much. Of course, it starts out, if I should fall from grace with God, and no angel will retrieve me. Let me go, boys, let me go, boys. Let me go down in the mud where the river's all run dry. Anyway, this has a lot of great songs on it. It's almost like an elegy. Bottle of Smoke is one of my favorite Pogue songs. I think they use the F-bomb in that more than any other song in the world. Fairy Tale of New York kind of became famous on this one. And then it actually ends with that old nursery rhyme classic, Worms. The worms crawl in and the worms crawl out. What more perfect thing to be played at a memorial? So, for my memorial, and for number 20 of the Japan Vinyl Tag of 2024, the Pogues, If I Should Fall from Grace with God. That is my Japan Vinyl Tag for Brian at Tokyo Style Record. I'm sorry it took so long, Brian, but I was intimidated by the tag, and then once I started getting into it, I really loved it. And I hope everybody checks out Brian's channel if you haven't already. Very friendly guy, very likable, very enthusiastic about his music, and I'll link to the original video below. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon.